Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty good man. Sing it out. What a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty good man. He's a mighty, mighty good man.
I love that song, and it's really, really appropriate because we want to talk about what a man, and a mighty good man. And not only is this man a mighty good man, he's also engaged in helping other men to become mighty good men. You know what? Men are good. Men are good. I just think that sometimes they have so much pressure to be a certain way, and they have not been taught. But don't let me speculate on this. This is why we have my next guest and recurring co-host, Glenn Barker, who is the Executive Director of Mankind Project in Chicago. And I want to have a real candid conversation about happiness, despair, and back to happiness again. And we're also going to be talking about integrity and accountability. And what is it? I know for myself, I love fine words, and integrity is honesty, truth, thoughtfulness, honor, veracity, reliability, and uprightness. What do you have for us today when it comes to integrity, Glenn?
It's about having my words and my actions aligned. This is an agreement with myself. If we're making agreements with ourselves, let's put a practical example. New Year's resolution, I'm going to start running a mile a day. And if those agreements, so there's good agreements, and there's also, say, agreements that make you stretch, and then there's agreements that are leaps. So is this a stretch for you, or is this a leap? And I think we can set ourselves up for failure. We can set ourselves up to disappoint ourselves so we don't believe ourselves, which erodes our integrity. In other words, do we believe within our deepest selves that we can commit to this? So that's the number one thing. Making an agreement says, is this okay with me? Truly okay. Or is it a stretch? I will be a little out of my comfort zone. Or is this a leap? Meaning, I'm agreeing to something I have no clue how I'm going to try to do that, and that's setting yourself up for failure. So this is a critical, slow-down exercise that we do with men around their link between their own integrity and their agreements.
So are you saying that if a man makes an agreement, I would say that this would be for women perhaps too.
Absolutely.
If I were to make an agreement with myself that I'm going to write a book about engineering, which I don't really know that much about, then is that setting myself up for failure? I'm not really interested in writing that book, but maybe someone else wants me to, they challenge me, and I would agree that I'm going to do it. Am I out of integrity by agreeing to do something I don't want to do and know that it's going to be a stretch for me?
I think you're setting yourself up for that. I would say, in that case, I would ask you the question. This piece you want to do about a book about engineering, for you, is that a stretch, meaning that's something you just have to focus on and give time to, or would you say that's a leap, something that's you're dumping in the deep end and you haven't learned to swim yet? And I would just ask you that question, and how does that feel to you on the inside?
Well, I think on the inside, and this is very fictitious, I'm making this up, but just the thought of it is a leap.
It's a great example. You would say it's a leap. And then I would say, then Chloe, as your friend, mentor, I would say, have you already made agreements around doing this book with anybody yet? And your answer would be?
Well, no, I've been thinking about it, but now that I have all this anxiety in me and I'm making up excuses of why I can't do it, I'm probably not going to do it. So I'm going to make an agreement that that's not something for me. We're going to agree that that's not my job. So just with what I know for myself, that would be such a stretch. I mean, not even a stretch. That would be a leap, because if it were a stretch, are you saying that I could possibly get through that because it's just stretching myself?
Stretching yourself, and maybe you need support for that, and you'd like to look at that because that would stretch you. It takes you a little out of your comfort zone, and that's important, that we're stretching ourselves. And with the men, we have support systems for that. I'm with this stretch, and I'm asking for help, and the man can ask for what kind of support looks like for him. A leap is something, when I hear something like that, we're not advice givers, but I'll ask a good question. For you, is that a stretch or is that a leap? And give you a moment, check in, so that you stay in integrity. When your words and your feelings and your actions are all aligned. Your head says yes, or your heart says yes, but are you really okay with that? And you said, no. Right?
Right.
So if we're in a group together, and before you go out and tell the world and set yourself up for possibly failure or making excuses rather than taking responsibility. So if you want to rethink that stretch, what else might be a stretch for you that would be more reasonable, Chloe?
Well, a stretch for me that would be more reasonable is that I would write another book, and the book would be around something that I really am excited about, that I've always wanted to do, and I could see who the people are that I could get some advice from, and I could actually see myself doing the research and compiling everything together. Now, that's a stretch because I believe that anytime you say you're going to write a book, it's a stretch.
Anything you have to apply discipline to for a prolonged period of time, and it has a date and an outcome, yeah. So how does that feel on the inside? Does that feel a little more congruent? You actually feel that that's more connected with how you're thinking, feeling, and could probably act? Does that feel a little more true to your inner self to have that
absolutely.
kind of? Well, then I would say, without going further, we're on the road to maintaining your integrity with your agreements.
If you're in a gang, you could think that in your mind that you're being loyal means that you have integrity, but you're still doing horrible things. But that's your only view of loyalty and integrity, because those are the only men that you see in your life doing that.
Possibly. I would look at integrity to say, is that really your beliefs? Do you really think this is the right thing to do? So integrity is the self-check. Is this really okay? Or is this not okay?
Man, question on that. If you were, for instance, what Jade is talking about, being in a gang, and you've grown up with your fathers, your uncles, and maybe even your grandfather having come from a gang, that mentality, and when you do a self-check, is that okay? What if you've never been taught what is good and what is right and what is integrity? Can you ask yourself that question and get a real, reliable, honest, genuine answer back from the inside of yourself?
That's a terrific way to phrase it. I may make an agreement with my gang that I'm going to do something, and so that's my agreement. I'm committing myself to do something, to belong, or for whatever X, fill in the blank reason. If my inside check doesn't put an uh-oh in there somewhere, then I'm hiding, repressing, or denying that. This is a term we use called shadow. What I hide or I repress by holding it back, or I'm denying its existence. And once you get to denial, it can actually be so deep that it'll be overrode by your agreement, your needing to belong, or your fear or your anger. So it's kind of like, what part of us has possession, and who's driving the bus?
I know, Glenn, and also Jade and listeners and all of you there, that sometimes and even oftentimes, as we can see today, that there are men in the homes, and then there are some young men and boys who are still going in a different way and not knowing who they are. So what do you say to that, Glenn?
I say we emulate what we celebrate. And I'll tell you this about men. If you point to a man who's got whatever he has, and we say, wow, we celebrate him, we honor him, we want to be like him, the men will gravitate in whatever direction. Please get this. Men will gravitate towards any direction where they can get the significance and the love of connection and the certainty. Any of those three together that man, men are drawn to that. So we will emulate what we celebrate. So the question in this world is, what are we celebrating?
That's very good. What are we celebrating? So is that true for men and women, that we emulate what we celebrate?
I believe so too, but I see it very, very strong in the nature of men. It doesn't almost, I'll put it this way, it almost doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
If it's conquering a land and slaughtering all the people, and that's what's being celebrated, the men will do that and in a way feel honored for that.
Right.
If we, right? Get this, everyone. We will emulate what we celebrate, and there's a powerful, powerful role for women here.
And what is that role?
That role is to honor, hold in sacred space the men that we want to see in this world. Not by shaming or lecturing the men into it, but by actually honoring, loving, celebrating, and pointing to what we want. Wow. That's what I want. Right? You know what the man will do?
Really,
he'll look in, that man will look in your direction. Say, what is she pointing to? I will be that. And I will get the love, and I will get, and I will get the significance, and I will get the certainty, and I will get joy, because that's what I want.
Well, this is a wonderful place for us to leave that, is to address it straight up. We have to address this situation, this topic, these real-life issues. This is not, we're not making this up in our head. These are real-life issues, and we have to address them straight up. And if you could just leave us, before we let you go, with just a words of wisdom until next week, what would that be?
I would say to all of our listeners, listen to our archives as well, and maybe take it upon ourselves this week to look at certain things within ourselves, and maybe call in again next week and tell us what you saw. Look at integrity. Is what I'm thinking, feeling, and saying and doing in the world, is that congruent? Am I really being truthful on the inside? On the outside, am I holding to my agreements? When I can't, am I doing the next best thing to mend that relationship and make good on my promise through the second chance that I have? Observe that in yourselves. Observe that in the world. And I believe that's sort of the pathway in that'll help the pathway out.
That is the pathway in that's going to help the pathway out, is to go to your inner essence and check within yourself. And if we can really check within ourselves, I believe, to hold ourselves accountable, to be men and women of integrity, I think that we could do a little bit more. We've been talking to Glenn Barker, and he's been sharing with us the courage to be a man. Thank you so much, Glenn.
You're so welcome, Chloe. And if let me put this out to the listeners: if you have men in your lives, and if your neighborhood or your church or an organization would like to start a men's group, foster a men's group, learn more about how to get one started, I'm glad to help. Please give me a call at area code 312-243-6743. That's Glenn Barker at 312-243-6743. MKPChicago.org is the web address, and I'm glad to help anybody that wants to move and grow this direction. Thank you.
Right, and you can also connect with Glenn at MKP Chicago at is it anything else Chicago on Twitter?
At gmail.com is the email address, and Glenn Barker and MKP Chicago is on Twitter, and Glenn Barker's on Facebook, and you look this direction, we'll connect.
Okay. Thank you so much, Glenn, and we will connect with you next week. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye for now. I really enjoy having these conversations with Glenn Barker. They are right on time, and we cannot have girl power without man power. So we're going to be right back with our VIP guests right after this commercial break.